Good evening from PLUGHITZ Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we are here with episode 529 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology for June 9th, 2019. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, Apple announces a cheese grater, India tries to ban cryptocurrencies, and DirecTV might be on the chopping block. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Snapchat, on any of the podcatchers like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the Podcast Play app in the Windows Store, the myriad of others like Spotify or TuneIn Radio, on any of our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Periscope, Mixer, Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook Live, or of course on our site, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. This here, like I said, is F5 Live, the flagship show of the PLUGHITZ Live family of content. We are live Sunday nights at about 9 p.m. Eastern. We will discuss the news of the week and gadgets, gaming, internet, and media. There's two ways that you can join us. The first is live on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern by going to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio and give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you're not able to join us live, that's okay. You can always go to plughitzlive.com/subscribe, and there you will see all of our shows and all of the myriad of ways that you can subscribe to them. And I guess with that, that's the spiel. Avram, how have you been this week?
Okay, not bad. Still tired. Still in the wrong time zone, I think. But otherwise, it's been a good week. We've got a lot going on, of course. And now this week is going to be E3, where we're doing some coverage of all the new games that are coming out and all the new gaming hardware that's being announced at that show. So a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And Google had a press event a couple of days before E3. Microsoft had theirs just a couple of hours ago, and we'll be discussing that in just a little bit. But so far, there's been lots of games, but lots of platform talk. So that has been interesting to see. Both from Google and from Microsoft, both talking platform stuff. So with Sony not there and Nintendo physically not there, it will be interesting to see if we hear anything of any value on that topic from either of them. But it's been an interesting E3 so far. Do you guys have a team out there?
Yeah. Andrew is out there. Our editor Andrew Friedman is out there. He's covering it, and of course, some of our sister sites have a whole bunch of people out there.
Sure.
But there's, he's out there, and already we've seen some interesting information about the new Xbox, and so there's a lot going on even before the show started.
It's funny, whenever I think of E3, I always think of your company. Because the last time I was at E3, Cherie is the one who made the event for me.
Cherie makes the event for a lot of things.
Yes, she does. We went to a press conference together. I don't remember which one. I think it was Sony, and then we decided, okay, well we've filed our thing. I guess maybe we'll go down to the pier. And the whole group of us just drove down to the pier randomly one night. It was a lot of fun. Cherie's always fun.
Yeah, she's the life of the party.
Indeed. And you never know what a night is going to look like with her.
Yeah.
Which is always fun. But anyway, we've got lots of news to talk about this evening. So let's go ahead and get to some of that. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new tablet, laptop, an Xbox One, S or X, or basically almost anything else in tech, you can find it at the Microsoft Store. We will talk about some of this stuff in a little bit, but because it is E3, there are some deals going on. You can get an Xbox One starting at $199 right now, and there's a couple of really cool ones that are on special, plus a whole bunch of information and the ability to pre-order things like Gears 5, which is weird to say that it's not Gears of War, and a whole bunch of other stuff, including links to the briefing if you missed it earlier and you'd like to see it. And all of that and more is available by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So, before E3, we kind of started our week with the Worldwide Developer Conference from Apple, which is one of Apple's 2 regularly scheduled announcement periods. They tend to announce new hardware in September and new software and platforms in June, and this year was no different, with a whole bunch of interesting announcements. We've got a significantly more comprehensive list of some of the things that were announced on the website at PLUGHITZlive.com, but there's a couple of things that I would like to discuss. The first is Apple's move to make the iPad's version of iOS its own separate fork. I think that's an interesting move myself. We had heard rumors of it last week. There had been some evidence in some of the SDK downloads that it was coming, but to hear that they have legitimately forked iOS and they're calling it iPad OS for the iPad is an interesting idea. I think I'm both for it, interestingly for it and against it all at the same time. I think it makes sense from the standpoint of the iPad has certain features, right, that never make it to the phone or the iPod Touch, right, like split screen. And why should the iPad team have to worry about building that stuff with the constraints of, is it going to break the iPhone? I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a different use case when you're using on something like a giant iPad Pro than when you're using it on a on an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that they would split it off a bit. Now I guess they're sort of maintaining 3 operating systems, but
well, when you pull WatchOS and tvOS into the mix, they've kind of got 5 going on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, how does that compare with Google? I mean, you've got Chrome OS, Android, Wear OS. I mean, I guess Android on tablets counts so little that they don't really maintain it as separate.
And if you throw Andromeda in there, I mean, it's not an official public project, but it is an operating system they're working on.
Right.
The thing that's based on Magenta or whatever.
Right. So
I think for the most part it makes sense. My fear is that going forward, at some point, deploying an app to the store might become more of a challenge, simply because, if you include certain SDKs, will it automatically limit itself to the iPad when you publish it? Or are you going to have to mark stuff? Is it going to be more likely that apps are going to get rejected out of the store for, settings file being wrong, things like that? Because Apple's notorious for having no leniency. If you've got your settings file wrong, even if it's something that they could have predicted, they will still reject you from the store. So I fear that the development side of things will get difficult. But from the user standpoint and from the Apple developer standpoint, I think it totally makes sense.
All right.
And speaking of some of those other operating systems, WatchOS, it was one of the other places where I thought they had made an interesting move, that the Apple Watch can officially almost entirely work sans an iPhone. It's got its own store now. You can install apps without cluttering up your phone with apps, which I think is great. You know, it'll give developers the ability to create smaller, narrower, more focused apps for the watch, which in the past nobody wanted to do because each one would have required you to install another app on your phone, and everybody hates that. And so, you know, Apple's created a way to deal with it, and I think that's a big move. That the Apple Watch can function independently.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely helpful, particularly if you say you wanted to use it with a different operating system. Like, not that I would really do this, but I mean, I believe you can now use it somewhat effectively with an Android phone, considering how crappy Android Wear OS watches are.
Mm-hmm.
This might be your best if you really want to watch a smartwatch. This might be your best choice.
Yeah, for sure. Because now theoretically you could get notifications pushed from not an iPhone. The apps can come down either way. So yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't considered that all of a sudden it's able to be more usable with another platform. I had just thought now it's a bit more solo. But yeah, now you could use it with an Android phone even with more flexibility, which, considering, it is consistently the highest rated smartwatch out there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the product that brought the most fun on Twitter, the new Mac Pro and the Pro display. Oh, the fact that they went back to the cheese grater design from years ago amuses me to no end. And I'm so glad that everybody thought the same thing when they announced it.
Is the design really an issue? I think the issue is that it's super expensive, but they're not targeting it toward even regular professionals. It's not even adequate for a regular creative professional because it's too expensive. So, it's for, I don't know. I guess there's enough potential customers to do this, but it's basically for Pixar and Industrial Light and Magic to buy. There's not a lot of. You'd have to be a professional animation or film studio and one with a nice budget for computer, editing and effects to pay for this.
Especially when you take into consideration that the top of the line model is estimated that it will launch somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000 per computer.
Yeah, no joke. Even the bottom of the line model, which you're paying a tremendous Apple tax for,
sure,
is what, like $5,000?
Yeah, 5 or 6, something like that.
Right. So it's a tremendous premium over PCs, and yes, there are companies they just buy Mac.
Mm-hmm.
But now you have to ask, okay, what are they going to buy? If not this, and I guess if they want a Mac, they're going to buy a MacBook Pro or something instead for everybody because, this is just for example.
Or they could do an iMac if you wanted a desktop.
Yeah, I guess an iMac, right. The idea of getting a regular Mac tower is no longer for, I won't even say the masses. no longer for the masses of creative professionals.
Right.
Like you take, for example, at my company, right? We have people who are, quote unquote creative professionals who need Macs. Well, they believe they need Macs. They use Macs because they like to use the software. They like to do photo and video editing on Mac.
Yeah.
They could theoretically do all that on a PC, by the way. But anyway, they so they use Macs, and there's no way that our company is going to buy them a $6,000 computer per person.
Right.
And I think the $6,000 one doesn't even have much storage, right? So they're going to get MacBook Pros that cost like $2,000 or something, but they're not. But for companies that just need some photo and video editors, professional grade, these are too expensive. So it's got to have to be for like a movie studio or something like that has, and not a small one.
No. And I mean, when they were talking about the capabilities of it, they kept talking about like being able to render 3 8K streams at once. Well, that is an interesting statistic.
But who's doing it?
Right. But how important is that? It's not really, because I'm only going to be working on one feed at a time on any given computer, because I can only set up one. Right? I'm only going to work on a thing at a time. I'm going to render it at the end of the day when I walk away. So that ability is not terribly useful in most situations, but it is a hell of a stat. And then on the other side is the Pro Display, which was Twitter fascinating when this came out. Obviously, in the room, the mandatory applause was there, but on Twitter, the response to this display was definitely no quieter, but certainly not as nice. So the display itself is actually pretty impressive. It is equal in capability to an actual broadcast quality reference monitor, which usually run somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000 themselves, and Apple's going to sell this for $6,000. Well, that's a great price. And even at that price, you're like, okay, that's a huge discount over a Sony reference monitor. However, it does not come with a stand.
Right.
So by itself, it would they just put it on the desk on its back.
Yeah. Yes. You're just gonna put it on the table and it's just gonna sort of roll around. It's
Or
one of the
prop it
worst
up.
cases of pricing hubris I've ever seen. It's one of those things I'll never understand though, because it's a similar situation to ones we've seen before where they sell you the car without the wheels. So it's like the Surface, the Microsoft Surface tablets.
I actually referenced that in my tweet.
So I mean, I guess this is even worse because you can't really use this at all without I guess you could lean it against the wall or something, but you're not going to do that with a $6,000 monitor.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what you do with a $130 Best Buy special when you're a college student.
But here's the thing, the $130 Best Buy special comes with a stand.
I know.
Every monitor in the world comes with a stand except this one. Every single monitor, like, you could get a $80 monitor or you could get a $2,000 monitor. They all come with stands.
Right.
Whether stands are of equal quality is another story.
Right.
But at the very least, when you take that thing out of the box, it is not assumed that you will have to buy something else.
Right. To make
it
usable at all.
To make it usable at all, right? Like, I mean, it's just like crazy. So, almost every monitor is also Visa mountable out of the box, right? I think most things you don't need to buy a separate a separate Visa adapter like you're going to have to do with this.
Most.
So
I do have a collection of HP monitors around here that have no VESA mounting on them, but
they have stands.
yes, but they have stands. I had to have some VESA adapters custom made for them, but yes.
So I get that. I sort of get the situation that Apple is trying to talk about, which is, well, if it's a large enough business, they probably want their own monitor arm. So why should they have to pay for a stand when they're not going to use it? That being said, that happens with most monitors, and the stand probably doesn't cost that much to manufacture. Now,
certainly not $1,000.
Now, this stand, maybe it's a bit fancier than the average stand that comes with a $400 monitor, but I don't know how much fancier it is. Like, their big boasting point is that you can rotate it to portrait mode. You can do that on like a $300 Dell monitor stand with no problem, and they don't charge you extra for that.
Yeah, I've got an old school HP tube lit LED LCD screen around here from like 15 years ago that has the ability to rotate 90 degrees. It's not special.
That's not rocket science.
And it's certainly not $1,000 worth of feature for a monitor stand, because that monitor was $400 at the time, and it does it.
Right. I mean, if they think this stand is so fantastic, maybe they should give you the option when you're buying it to, you either. But also, why would a Visa mount cost like $300 for a little adapter to mount? It's not like it. You still have to have an arm. It's just an adapter.
Yeah,
that's like charging you $300 for a dongle.
I had adapters custom made for these HP monitors, and they cost me $26 a piece.
Right.
And they were custom designed and manufactured for me.
And how much do we think it costs Apple? I guess the bottom line is this: the companies that are buying this stuff just have money to burn.
Yeah.
But the way that Apple's presenting it is kind of stupid. Like, why don't you just charge X amount more and include the stand or include the Visa mount or something, or sell it in two configurations, one with the Visa mount and one with a stand, and charge more money for the one with a stand.
Which is their traditional business model, is that, not talking about add-on pieces. They've always said, we have the iMac, and here are the configurations. Not that there's 6 models of iMac. There's the iMac. How would you like to configure it?
It seems weird. Now, on the other hand, I guess this does leave a market open for somebody who wants to make a cheap stand for it. You don't have to buy theirs, or a cheap Visa mount. You don't have to buy theirs. On the other hand, again, if you're buying a $6,000 monitor, maybe you just have a giant pile of money that you can just like bathe in, or lie on top of like a bed, like in Breaking Bad, where you just had it on in the storage locker or something.
That's so funny, because I was thinking Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, but Scrooge McDucks are only coins, so
fair enough.
Not that much money, unless they're like gold.
Although they appear to be gold coins, so
yes. But anyway, with inflation, I'm saying it's Breaking Bad. But anyway, but yeah, it's I guess if you're spending on these, you don't really care. You're just going to buy a huge order of them and pick which one of these things you want. But it's bad PR, I guess. But let's be honest,
'cause
the people who are buying this don't care. They don't care. It's not their money.
I was going to say, interestingly, in this case, even like Apple diehards seemed to be annoyed by it, and had negative things to say, which for me was fun to watch. But I think in the end, you're right. I don't think it'll affect sales at all. The people that this are aimed at, it's not going to adjust anything, especially when you take into consideration that normally you would be buying a $35,000 reference monitor, and this is $7,000 if you include the stand. It's still a steal comparatively.
It still has to be proven that it is of identical quality to the reference monitor.
That's true, because even Samsung has never been able to break into that. It is Sony and Sony only right now.
Right. So there must be a reason why others haven't done this before.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that they're obviously going to have to prove themselves. It'll be interesting to see what happens there, because with the negative sentiment going into the product line, it's never a good starting point, I guess. So.
It confirms what people have said about Apple for a long time, and something that I don't think Apple really wants to talk about, which is Apple tax, overpriced stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, nobody was even talking about the fact that the computer is $6,000 and the monitor's $5,000 or whatever. It's the stand. So they could have avoided this silly story just by selling it, charging even more, and selling it with a stand.
Yeah, exactly. But it's what we've kind of come to expect from the new Apple under Tim Cook versus Steve.
Yeah.
This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by NewEgg. Whether you're building a new computer or upgrading an existing one, NewEgg has everything that you need to get started, from processors and motherboards to power supplies and water coolers, or full systems. You can get it all at NewEgg. And every day they have some daily deals. Today we've got a video card, an MSI laptop, and all kinds of other stuff as well, flash drives. Like I said, those deals change every day. To find out what the daily deal is and to see all the other products, you can go to piltchpoint.live/NewEgg. So I guess one of the topics that's been in the news lately in the tech world has been international relations on technology. And we're likely about to start seeing some effects from it, right?
I think we're already seeing it, but it's going to be a lot more visible. So, as many of us know, the U.S. is in a trade war with China, which is where a lot of our electronics, a lot of our computers, a lot of our components are manufactured, and recently, the Trump administration announced that it was increasing the tariffs, which had been at 10%, to adding a 25% tariff on $200 billion worth of products. And in fact, supposedly there may be a wave even coming after that. But, this new 25% was announced just a couple of weeks ago, and I remember reading that just last weekend the first ships to arrive in port were being charged the tariffs. So when we were at Computex, this was a very big topic of conversation wherever we went, whenever we asked about prices of things. Usually, off the record, vendors were telling us, we really can't tell you what the price of our products is going to be because we're not really sure yet how these tariffs are going to pan out, whether there's going to be more tariffs. But we know the prices are going to be higher than we'd like them to be. So we talk with companies and they'd say, well, we'd really like to charge like $90 for this headset. That's what we had planned, but we got to see, because we think we're going to have to. This is being sourced from China, and we think we might have to charge significantly more than that. So normally when we go to a trade show, companies say, hey, sometimes they'll say, hey, we don't know what price is going to be yet. We're still working it out. But this is the first time I've seen companies say, well, we know what we'd like to charge, but we don't know how much we're going to have to build into the price because of the taxes. Because you're talking about a 25%. When they had to take a 10% hike, some of that did end up in the prices, but people perhaps didn't notice it.
Sure.
Like I was hearing from some vendors, well, these motherboards are actually selling for a few dollars more than they would have. But hey, people may not notice because they haven't bought a motherboard in a couple of years. The price isn't that much higher. We've absorbed some of the loss, But as these tariffs are getting higher, the likelihood of this being a very significant impact on the price of your computers starting in the next month or two, and definitely unless there's some resolution in the political situation going through the holiday season at least, is significant. Everybody's very concerned about how this might affect the bottom line in the tech industry. But it's also having another effect. So we talked to MSI CEO Charles Chang about this, and he said, he's one person who would go on the record talking about it, and he said that they are doing something a lot of companies are doing, which is they're moving a lot of their manufacturing capacity out of China, but they're moving it to Taiwan. Or they're looking at long-term moving it to Thailand and Vietnam, so or the Philippines. So other Asian countries are the beneficiary of this, but even when they do that move, it's still going to cost you more because the labor and the manufacturing costs are higher when you move out of mainland China. There's been so much optimization to the supply chain when you're manufacturing in say Shenzhen, China, which is where a lot of manufacturing is, and labor costs are much higher in other countries. So, in other words, you can expect to be paying more for your electronics very soon, and it's not the kind of thing where you're going to know exactly how much more you're paying versus what you would have paid, but perhaps we'll get glimpses of it if you have a product that's already on the market and you see it going up by let's say you have a motherboard that was $100 and now it's $120 all the time. That might tell you that it was tariffs. So obviously one thing is the companies, they don't want people to know that this is why the price is going up, per se. I think they just don't want to be trying to make a political statement. They just want to be able to sell product. On the other hand, there are going to be winners and losers. MSI told us that another company, EVGA, had a lot of problems over mitigating the tariffs, so their prices went up, and MSI figured out how to sort of, do the workaround, have some of their stuff manufactured in Taiwan, whatever. And so now they've pulled ahead of EVGA in the U.S. market because they were able to deal with the tariffs better. So it's not going to have the same effect on every brand. It obviously depends on what they're manufacturing in China already and have to move or pay tariffs on, and what they're not. But overall, I think we're going to see a tremendous impact from this over the next 6 months or so. And the average consumer may not know for sure exactly why the price of something is higher than it might have been. And in some cases, if it's a brand new product, you might not know that actually it really should have been or would have been, $10, $20, $30 less. Now that's if you're talking about, a relatively low ticket item. But when you're talking, this is going to affect systems. This is going to affect laptops. This is going to affect desktops. So, you could be talking about, a $1,200 laptop that now costs $1,400. So it's it's hard to say exactly. Obviously, we'll continue at Tom's Hardware to follow this story as we have for a while, but it's it doesn't look like there's resolution to the issues between the United States and China anytime soon. In fact, it looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better, as China is doing some retaliatory tariffs, and there's even more rounds of tariffs that have been threatened by the United States. Ultimately, unfortunately, right now, these are not really solving any problems for either country, because it's not really creating a better market for U.S. products in China, and it's not creating it's not bringing any jobs to U.S. manufacturing. They're only going to other Asian countries. So it's not going to suddenly bring PC manufacturing back to the U.S. But anyway, that's kind of something to keep an eye out for. I guess my advice to people would be, if you were thinking of buying something and it's already out, and you were thinking, oh, I wonder if this is going to get cheaper on Black Friday or something, it may not. So, keep that in mind.
That's an interesting point that I hadn't really considered, was people waiting for Black Friday and things like that. That there's almost no way that any of this gets any kind of resolution by then.
Yeah, your Black Friday price might be the pre-tariff price, right? Like it might be what the price is now. It might be what, all of a sudden it goes up and then it goes down again. Obviously, there's a lot of price trackers in the world, including camel.com, which is a great one, and PC Part Picker, which is another really good one. So you could see, what something used to cost if it's something that existed pre-tariff. If it's a new motherboard coming out, a new CPU, a new laptop coming out, a month from now, it's hard to say what it would have cost, without tariffs. So this is the kind of thing, obviously, at Tom's Hardware, we'll be trying to kind of keep a track on what the impact is, what products are being impacted more than others. But it's also kind of scary, not just from the perspective of you may have to pay more, but what the spillover from that is going to be to the industry as a whole. If people are paying more, people are buying less stuff. If the companies have to absorb some costs, maybe they're spending less on advertising and marketing. So there's a lot of sort of spillover effects to the tech industry that we could see. And one thing also is apparently consumer confidence. One of the things that MSI CEO Charles Chang said to us is he thinks that consumers are also, a lot of them are holding out to see if the tariffs go up or down or something. So there are people not. There's also some pent up demand. So overall, it's hard to see. I mean, maybe the price increases will be such that people will just keep rolling with the punches. I mean, maybe if it's only $10, $20, $30 on a motherboard or a keyboard or something, people won't notice that much. I don't know. But it certainly has the potential to really make a huge difference in people's holiday and back-to-school shopping season this year.
Yeah, for sure. Because, like you said, the 10% on a $100 product is very different than 10% on a
25%.
20. That's what I meant. 25% on a $7,000 or $35,000 Mac Pro.
If you're buying Mac Pro, you probably don't notice.
Well, it's
someone else's money. It's the company money.
But if you're looking at something like that, you're looking at a $3,000 Razer laptop or something like that. Adding 25%, even 10% to that, adding another $300 is noticeable, but adding another $600,
more like
$750,
yeah,
is a lot.
Yeah, no joke. I mean, I don't think you're going to see it be a perfect 25% because companies will find ways of slashing a cost elsewhere. And a lot of them will avoid the 25% by doing other things that will raise the cost, but not because of tariffs. Like if they move production to Taiwan, they won't have to pay the tariff, but the cost of manufacturing there will be more. Will it be 25% more? Probably not. So they're going to save some money that way. But first of all, it takes a long time to ramp up production in other locations, particularly if you're a company that doesn't have a lot of capability in other locations. So some smaller companies that really have been counting on manufacturers in China to make their stuff and they don't have another place to go right away, they're going to be hurt the most. It's not going to be the pain's not going to be spread equally among different manufacturers.
Right, yeah. Because like you said, there's always the ability for the big guys to be able to use their network, their relationships to make quick changes, but a little guy may not have that capability to shift manufacturing overnight the way somebody like MSI might be able to work with a different manufacturer that they have a relationship with in Taiwan before they can ramp up their own production or something. But a little guy is not going to have that. It's you go to the Foxcons or whoever to produce your thing, and that's just the way it works.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that Taiwan doesn't have the resources to take back all the manufacturing that's happening in China. They have 23 million people. That's their entire population. Whereas I think the province where they do most of the manufacturing in China, there's 100 million people. So there's a lot more labor, a much larger labor market, plus just things like electricity, water, all the things you need to supply a manufacturing plant. The infrastructure. I mean, Taiwan has obviously done lots of manufacturing, but their infrastructure is not made to take on to suddenly take another however much manufacturing they didn't have before. So these things may move eventually. I mean, one of the things that Chang said is a lot of these, once these companies have moved some of their stuff out of China, they're probably not going to move it back because of all the expense of moving it, and they never know if this is going to happen again.
Right.
So even if it gets resolved tomorrow. So
right.
So anyway, not great news for people who are interested in people who work in the tech industry or people who buy technology. We can, no matter what your sort of political opinion on tariffs is and on the trade situation with China, it's definitely going to cause a lot of pain to people who are shopping and to businesses, including a lot of businesses here in the United States that either manufacture there or are part of the same supply chain. I mean, there's no question that Best Buy and and Amazon and NewEgg and all these companies that are retailers here will be affected by it. So, we'll have to keep an eye and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Avram, as always, I appreciate you bringing us the more nuanced things like this, because you hear about it in the news, but how does it actually affect us? That can be difficult to follow. So we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Razer. All the accessories you need to up your game on PC and on console. Available from Razer, whether you're looking for a new system, a controller, a mouse like we use here in the studio. They've got it all, and right now they've actually got a whole new line of white and pink accessories. Basically the entire line. Controllers and mice and mics and headphones and the whole thing, and they're all available by going to f5live.tv/Razer. All right, so it's E3. We talked about it a little bit at the top of the show, and today was kind of the unofficial kickoff as Microsoft's Xbox briefing tends to be the opening keynote of the show, and this year is no different. And we saw some interesting stuff. For me, the thing that I focused on was not, well, at least one of the things I focused on was probably not the thing that got everybody excited. One of my all-time favorite games has a sequel coming, and its studio just became part of Xbox Game Studios. It's Double Fine, and the game is Psychonauts. If you're a regular viewer, you have heard me talk about it a lot. It was not a commercial success in the beginning, but became a bit of a cult classic, and it is by far one of my all-time favorites. And there's a sequel coming, and we got to see a sizzle reel for it, and I'm super excited. And it's also interesting that Double Fine is part of the Xbox Game Studio family now. They have added a lot of new studios over the last couple of years. I think I heard them say 7 in the last 2 years, which definitely means that Microsoft is trying to ramp up their in-house game development, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good to see more involvement from Microsoft, trying to become a bigger player in actual game publishing. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, a lot of companies see a lot of money in the gaming space, as they should. Mm-hmm. So why not?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we saw some video of the two big franchises. We saw some Gears 5, which is the next installment in the Gears of War franchise, which is still weird to only say Gears 5. And in particular, it was interesting that we actually got to go under the stage for the announcement of a new mode called, it's not called Survive, is it? It's called Escape, which felt a little bit like the popular zombie mode from a couple of other games. It felt a little bit like Left 4 Dead, which for me is a win. Right. But it takes place in the Gears of War universe rather than in Louisiana. So that, for me, that might actually be a lot of fun and something that I would play in the Gears of War franchise, because despite being a big fan of the primary voice actor, I've never been able to get into the game itself. But on the other hand, the other big franchise, of course, is Halo, and the announcement of Halo Infinite came along with some information about new hardware. And that new hardware is currently being called Project Scarlet. It is the next generation of Xbox console, and as Phil said on stage, when the original Xbox launched 18 years ago, the must-have game was Halo, and they intend for it to be the exact same this time. And so Halo Infinite will be a launch title for Project Scarlet, or whatever it ends up being called in the market in holiday 2020. They did a bit of a sizzle reel for that with some like developer commentary, and it sounds like it's going to be a beast of a machine. 4 times the processing power of the Xbox One X, 8K video, 120 frames a second. What do they do? Faster and more RAM, moving to an SSD instead of a spinning disk hard drive, things like that. And the developers apparently have had access to it for a little while, and apparently they're loving it. So that's pretty exciting right there. And we've only got until holiday 2020 to wait. We'll probably hear the name of it at E3 2020 is my guess.
Well, so it sounds like it's going to be around the same time frame as the PlayStation 5.
Mm-hmm. Not unusual for those two to launch concurrently. I think the 360 and the 3 were a year apart, and I think that was a mistake that that they won't make again.
Right. Yeah, so it sounds and very similar concept too. Both are going to have AMD based processors and graphics, and both are going to have SSDs.
Yep. Yeah.
So
it'll definitely be interesting to see. Obviously, we know how Microsoft differentiates its hardware. It's all about the platform, right? That's how the Xbox has always differentiated itself. But one of the things that I found interesting was that that Spencer basically retconned Steve Ballmer almost entirely. He got up there, and at the beginning of his thing, he said, "We've heard your feedback, and a game console should be about the games." And so Project Scarlet is that. And what he was referencing, of course, was Steve Ballmer's famous, "The Xbox should be the center of the living room."
Right.
And the focus over the last 2 generations of media content and stuff like that, the fact that Ballmer, renamed the Zune media system to under the Xbox brand, which was bizarre, before being renamed to Groove and then shut down entirely. But that the Xbox is about games, period.
Yeah.
Okay, I can buy that. I can buy into that. I mean, I use my Xbox for everything, but that doesn't mean that the hardware should be focused on everything. The hardware should be focused on games, and if it does Netflix well, great.
Yeah.
I think that's a very different approach to the 360 and the Xbox One, which was it should be good at everything. No, it should be good at games. If it does other things well, okay. I like that business model because okay, so maybe it doesn't do streaming services well. You know what does? The $40 Roku.
Yeah.
There's 100 other products that you can get a good streaming experience on. I don't necessarily need my Xbox to be that. So I'm good with that. The other big thing, of course, that they talked about was Project xCloud. We've been kind of trickle information. And my biggest questions were at least addressed, not necessarily answered entirely, but were at least addressed. How far along is it? Well, they're doing hands-on demos of it at E3 this week. Well, that's pretty far along. To allow the press to see it in action, you don't want the press to go, "Oh, this sucks." So it must be far enough along that they're not afraid that the media is going to say, "This sucks." So that's a good thing. And also, how is it going to work? Has been my other big question, and that was actually answered with a hybrid and a full cloud model. The full cloud hardware will be in an Azure data center somewhere, and you'll be able to stream from them probably leasing the hardware. They didn't talk about pricing on that, but probably leasing the hardware while you play. But the other one is the hybrid model, where you actually use your Xbox hardware as a Project xCloud server. You stream your game at zero cost. That is the thing that Sony promised in the PlayStation 3 that never happened.
Yep.
Microsoft not only is saying it's happening, they said October. They put a date on it. I am super excited about that. The idea that it, because Microsoft talked about this too, right? That gaming across all your devices. The idea was that you could start an Xbox game on the Xbox, play it on the PC, play it on the phone. It never materialized that way, except for maybe Solitaire and Minesweeper, but that's not the same thing, right? This would allow you to grab your iPhone, your Android phone, and play it out in the wild. Obviously, it'll require bandwidth, and that's an important thing to remember, but to be able to use your Surface Book out in the wild and be able to play your game streaming off of your own Xbox, that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. And then, of course, the final confirmation on something that you and I, Avram, have been talking about for weeks, and that is the Xbox Game Pass expansion. They confirmed 2 weeks ago that Xbox Game Pass for PC was a thing, and that made two brands, Xbox Game Pass for console and Xbox Game Pass for PC, which seem to be the official names as of today for the two versions of Game Pass. But there is a third one. There is Game Pass Ultimate, which we had talked about a couple of weeks ago. By that, I mean probably 2 or 3 months ago now.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago.
And that Ultimate might be... there were rumors of a bit of a range, right? But the lowest range on the concept was that it would have console, PC, and Xbox Live all as a single subscription. And it is. Instead of $9.99 a month for Xbox Game Pass for console, for $14.99 a month, you get console, PC, and Xbox Live, which I think is a great deal, especially when you start looking at all the games that they just announced for Game Pass for PC today. Woo, yep. There are all kinds of games available, and all you have to do to get into it is on your Windows 10 PC, go to the Microsoft Store, search for Xbox Beta, which is the old Xbox app is now called the Xbox Console Companion. There is a new desktop experience called Xbox, just Xbox, and it's in beta right now. And you can deal with all of your Game Pass stuff from there. And because it's E3 and they love you, you can get the first month for $1 instead of $15, which is a great deal. We created an easy link, bit.ly/XGP Ultimate, and then Ultimate's all lowercase. So, and there's a link on the website to it. So, I'm super excited about the new Game Pass. It's the thing that's finally going to get me to do it, I think. is combining all three into one. I think that's going to be my final move. So I'm super excited about it. I know we've got some people in the chat room. If you've got any feedback on it, we'd love to hear about it. If not, that's okay, because we've got one more topic to talk about. We can come back to it at the end of the show. But if you're in the chat room, you've got some feedback, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be obviously a big step forward for Xbox people. It's amazing how game streaming is becoming even part of the console world. In the same week when we heard more details about Google Stadia. So,
and on top of that, we talked about Apple at the top of the show. Apple actually talked about tvOS, and the fact that the gaming for tvOS are actually starting to get serious about. They're officially supporting the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One controller for tvOS gaming, which obviously is a big move for them, because in all reality, as much as third-party controllers are nice, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 controllers are really the only ones that matter. And so, this is being able to use a real industry standard controller. I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see some of these game streaming services show up on Apple TV. So yeah, it's been a big week for game streaming, I think. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live is proudly powered by RiffTrax. Make fun of movies or let these guys do it for you. Mike Nelson, Bill Corbett, and Kevin Murphy, the former stars of Mystery Science Theater 3000, are back and doing what they do best, creating commentaries for Hollywood blockbusters and B-movie oddities like The Power. It looks terrible. The way it normally works is for a couple of bucks, you download the MP3, play it along with your DVD, Netflix, Amazon, wherever you happen to have the movie, and laugh. Some of the movies are available in full from the site, and from time to time they do live events. The current one started this week with a replay this coming week. On the 11th, it is Star Raiders. All of the live events are always a tremendous amount of fun. And to find out the movies that are available and the theaters that you can see the live events, you can go to f5live.tv/rifftrax with an X. And I lied a second ago. We got two more topics to go through. We know that governments have had trouble understanding and responding to cryptocurrency. They don't quite get what it is. They don't know how to wrap their heads around it, and they certainly don't know how to bring it into the legal infrastructure of most countries. We've seen a lot of countries, including the United States, look at it from a securities standpoint, treating it more like a stock or a bond. We've seen some countries who have tried to pretend that it doesn't exist at all. But one country is doing something a little unexpected, and following the footsteps of, interestingly, China. And that is India, who has considered banning cryptocurrency entirely. And by considered, I mean there is a bill that is headed to Parliament right now that would make mining, holding, selling, or buying any cryptocurrency punishable by 10 years in prison. That is intense right there. Their fear, of course, is that it facilitates illicit behavior. Tax evasion, interstate money transfers, and, of course, just illicit behavior in general. We all remember the famousness that was the Silk Road, which would not have been possible if it weren't for Bitcoin. But I don't know. I don't think banning it is it's not going to make it go away. It's just going to make the whole process go underground and make it harder to figure out what's happening. That's my feelings on it. What do you think, Avram?
I almost can't blame India. I mean, it is really hard for governments to keep track of this. Mm-hmm. If they were approaching it a different way, it could almost be a consumer protection measure, because people have lost so much money on these exchanges. It's turned out to be quite a disaster for a lot of people. But I guess if they want to take the risk, they could take the risk. I mean, this is fairly large. I mean, you're talking about India is the second largest country by population in the world.
Yep. And the first largest has already started this process.
Right. So I mean, I could see why cryptocurrency is a threat to governments because it's money that's not their legal tender.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that being an issue. On the other hand, there is just like a lot of weird stuff going on with it, particularly when you cut across all the different cryptocurrencies. Plus, you have people doing illegal things to get cryptocurrency, like creating all kinds of mining malware. So, I can kind of see the Indian government's point here that they want to stay away from it. On the other hand, you can't really stop it. This is the kind of thing that's very difficult to stop. So
they are one of those countries that has a pretty firm grip on their internet connections, though. So, I mean, the two countries that are talking about banning it entirely are two of the countries that have kind of the firmest grip on what their citizens can do and see on the internet. So they're the two that might actually be able to technologically pull it off. But I don't know. It just seems like everything has a way around it. It's the way technology works, with proxies and stuff.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a way around it.
There will be for people in India also. So, it is somewhat of a futile effort, but it will stop some folks. And here's the other thing that it would potentially stop, I guess, right? Like, there's very few e-tailers right now, like legit businesses that accept cryptocurrency as a payment.
Mm-hmm.
Can you name an online store where you could buy something with the cryptocurrency?
Today? No.
Yeah, today.
No. If we went back 18 months, I could have named a lot.
So,
including the Microsoft store. But today, no. Most of them have ended it simply because their payment processors have stopped supporting it.
Right. So now, even if a company wanted to in India, I'm going to assume that they can't. Right? Like, so even if, I don't know, do they have Amazon in India? Even
Maybe.
if they're, I think they do. So even if you're like largest, most legit businesses, they're wanted to accept it. If this law passes, then they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So the value, this is one reason why I don't really get cryptocurrency. Like, if you can't spend it anywhere, what good is it?
Right.
I mean, I guess you could sell it to somebody else who thinks it's worth something, and then they'll give you real currency for it that you can spend.
Right.
But the bottom line is, until I can go into the supermarket and spend Bitcoin or Ethereum to buy, like, to buy a fridge pack of soda, like, it's useless.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, there's a couple of companies out there that allow you to basically use Bitcoin via a debit card. So theoretically, you could do that at anywhere. It's just a bizarre, unusual situation. And calling it a currency has always, for this reason, has always made it weird for me, because I have always looked at it as a security, more like a stock than anything, because its only value is the market's trust in its value, which is exactly how a stock works. A stock price goes up because people think that it's going to go up, and so they want to buy it. And cryptocurrencies work the same way. The value goes up because people think the value is going to go up, and so they start buying it. So, to call it a currency has always been a bit of a misnomer for me, because, I don't see it ever being used as a currency like in a retailer, but more like an exchange, a way to skirt fiat currencies, right?
Well, I gotta tell you, the only currency that people should be getting, forget about Bitcoin, forget about Ethereum, forget about euros, forget about dollars, forget about pounds sterling, renminbi, yen.
I'm so afraid of where this is headed.
Nobody needs any of these things. You should buy Avrams from the Grand Duchy of Avram micronation in Tasmania.
Okay. You know, I should have predicted that that's where that was headed.
You should buy. For those who don't keep up with this, I mention it maybe once a year. There is a micronation, I guess you would call it. I don't know. Called the Grand Duchy of Avram, located in Australia, in Tasmania. Some dude named John Charlton Rudge or whatever decided he would found his own little duchy. It's that they don't actually have any territory though, but he named himself Grand Duke of Avram. And no, it's not named after me. I have no idea how they came up with this. And they have their own currency.
We've got to get him on the show someday.
Called, I don't know. I would be frightened this person. Called, they have, I don't know if this is really still going on because I can't find any new instances of their currency, but it's actually very valuable. If you look on eBay and you look up like, Grand Duchy of Avram currency, they have I think the banknotes are called Avrams and the coins are called Dukals, which sounds like something you would say to a kid who is potty training.
Yes, it does.
Listen, did you make a Ducal? Yeah, yes, my Ducal was worth 5 Avrams. Anyway, so anyway, they have their because I guess it's a collector's item or something. If you look it up on eBay, there are a few places that are selling it. It's worth a lot of money, but there actually was, I don't know if it's still there. It says it's still there. A Royal Bank of Avram that's located on the west coast of Tasmania, where you can exchange your real money for Grand Duchy of Avram money. So I'm just gonna say I think it's very valuable.
Okay, so I've never looked at the currency until just now. It's actually really pretty. They
put a lot of art into it.
Yeah, the coins are really nice looking. I don't know that a single 75 ducal coin would be worth $622.80, but it's definitely, for a collector, for sure, it would be fascinating.
Although, who are the collectors of this?
People who are looking for rare coins. My guess is there weren't a whole lot of these minted.
Rare coins that that aren't actually coins. Well, I mean, I guess depending on your opinion. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You could also get a commemorative coin of something too.
I was going to say it. Who is this for? The same people who come up on the you can only order 10 from the late night infomercial coins. Yes.
So right, exactly. It looks like all the ones they have are from like the 80s. So I wonder if they're still made anymore.
82 was the one I was just looking at. So who knows? I feel like I'm going to end up doing research on this. But anyway, so cryptocurrency banning in India. I think the only people who it'll actually affect are the people who aren't trying to use it for illicit behavior. That's my guess. So, I don't know. It seems like a weird move to me. I understand where it's coming from, but it seems like a weird move to me. It's one of those things like, banning pot. How well did that work? Well, it didn't. And I feel like trying to ban cryptocurrency is going to go the same way because it's not really traceable. It's going to be difficult to enforce, and it's just going to, I think, make law enforcement look silly. That's my guess, but I guess we'll see what happens over time.
Yep.
This week's DRM not included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You know your basic features, but you may not know about Amazon Prime Music, which is several million tracks available as part of your subscription. or Avram's favorite, Prime Video, which gives you TV, movies, documentaries, both original content and licensed content. Again, part of your subscription. And then my favorite is Twitch Prime, which gives you one free subscription to help a content creator that you like. You can use it to subscribe to us or any other Twitch channel, and then you get free games with Twitch Prime. You get free games every month, and they are yours to play. The last time I ended up playing Psychonauts, to throw back to Microsoft, I got it through Twitch Prime. So there's all kinds of games available, and if you're a Switch owner, you can also get a year of Switch Online for free as a Prime subscriber. And we have links to make finding all of these benefits easy for you. And if you're not a current Prime subscriber, we've got a 30-day free trial to find out if it's for you. You can find all of that at f5live.tv/prime. So, over the last couple of years, we've watched AT&T go from a delivery system to a content provider. They've purchased DirecTV. They purchased Time Warner, not the cable company, the other side of the business, which is now called Warner Media, which put Cinemax and HBO under their umbrella and a whole bunch of other stuff. Well, we talked a couple of weeks ago that DirecTV has not been doing well. And in fact, the company may have been lying in their public releases about how well it's doing, which is a weird sentence. That they had suggested in particular that DirecTV Now had been either steady or growing in subscribers, when in reality it has been shrinking. And all of that brings us to DirecTV and the fact that it is generally not doing well. Over the last 6 months, they have lost some 350,000 subscribers net. Like they're even with new subscribers, they're still down 325 or 350. Right. And that's not good. And they've kind of been hemorrhaging for the last couple of years. It's the reason why they were up for sale in the first place. If they had been doing well before AT&T bought them, they wouldn't have necessarily been up for sale because they've been independent for so long. But it hasn't gotten better, and so AT&T is considering either spinning them off or selling them, which a spin-off would inevitably end up with another company buying them anyway. So however it ends up going, they will end up in somebody else's hands, and the current interested party would be would make satellite TV go the same way that satellite radio did, and that's because it's Dish Network. So the only interested party right now appears to be Dish Network, which would bring all direct-to-consumer satellite television under a single umbrella, which is not surprising. It's not inexpensive to do.
Right.
To maintain things spinning in space is not an inexpensive thing. And the fact that they've been competing with each other all this time has been insane. And so the two of them becoming one seemed inevitable for a while, I think. And I think that is going to be what happens here, because it's either that or DirecTV goes away entirely. Those are my predictions, because AT&T definitely doesn't seem interested in trying to prop it up anymore.
I mean, I don't know why they should be. It just seems like the wind is not blowing in the direction of satellite TV.
Right.
I mean, if anything, the thing that people, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the thing people liked about satellite TV was in a place where you couldn't normally, where you had a limited choice of cable options, you could get satellite because you didn't have to have your house wired for it in the same way. You didn't have to have it in your neighborhood.
Right.
And then you had a choice. You have a choice of Dish or DirecTV, which is, I now have two satellite choices. But with all the cord cutting that's going on,
right,
and the issues that people have inherently with satellite anyway, it doesn't seem like doesn't seem like a technology of the future.
Mm-hmm.
What the future seems like, A, people are going to continue to do cord cutting, and B, people who want to get access to a service that they couldn't get otherwise, channels they couldn't get otherwise, whatever, will probably be getting it from 5G.
True, and through streaming services. It's
right.
In the past, if you were in a place where it was too expensive to run cable, or whatever, and Dish and or DirecTV were viable options for you. Today, you've got Hulu with live TV, you've got PlayStation View, you've got YouTube TV, you've got Sling TV. There's all these other options, and with 5G and the bandwidth to actually make what Clearwire tried to do with 4G possible, you're going to be covered. You're not going to have to worry about hoping that your thing is pointed in the right direction and that it doesn't rain. As we were at dinner last night after the grand opening of Amrock, and it rained, and the place we were had DirecTV, and all we saw was AT&T logos everywhere because everything went out.
Yeah, so
you're not going to have any of those problems with all this new stuff, and AT&T has its own streaming service coming, so it seems like a no-brainer for the DirecTV brand to be a thing of the past to me.
Yep. So yeah, it's not a surprise to me. I mean, I would wonder how much longer Dish will be around. It seems like they both have the same issues.
Yeah, well, Dish has holdings that DirecTV doesn't. Dish Network has all kinds of landline spectrum and stuff for some future deployments that they won't talk about. Like, they own an amazing amount of 600 megahertz bandwidth, which is... And they won't talk about what their intentions are with it. They just spent another couple $2 billion in the last, I think, 18 months to buy more 600 megahertz spectrum. And I have no idea what their intentions are, but maybe they're gonna put in a 5G network themselves. Who knows? Maybe they see the same writings on the wall. And
maybe
if if Dish Network was interested in DirecTV, my guess is it would be because of DirecTV's contracts with distributors, because DirecTV's always had better contracts with the networks than Dish Network has ever been able to get, and the fact that they have a physical network infrastructure for a streaming service, because, like we said, streaming seems to be the way things are going. So maybe Dish Network is planning on using their terrestrial bandwidth and DirecTV Now to roll out a zero-wire TV solution. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But certainly satellite TV as a technology, I don't think it's long for this world.
Yeah, for sure. And, when you look at satellite radio, what happened with satellite radio? The two companies merged. It went to a streaming model, and they started putting up terrestrial repeaters.
Yeah.
So it might be the exact same thing. And since both of them were leasing time on Dish Network's satellites. Anyway, on the other side of things is Warner Media, which we've talked a number of times about their upcoming streaming service. Well, some prices leaked this week, suggesting that the streaming service will run somewhere between $16 and $17 a month. Now, that sounds like a lot of money for a streaming service. Theoretically, sounds like it would be a Netflix or an Amazon Prime Video or something like that competitor. But here's the thing. Warner Media owns HBO. HBO Now is $15 a month. This is also going to include Cinemax. That by itself is your $2. When you add into that Warner Media is Warner Brothers, both television and movies, all of a sudden the service becomes way more attractive, especially for people who are already HBO subscribers. For the extra $1 or $2 to get basically everything Warner and Cinemax makes sense.
So I heard I heard that there's a possibility that the DC Universe shows are going to move to this Warner service. Did you hear that?
I've heard that. It wouldn't be terribly surprising, considering Warner is the exclusive distributor of DC properties.
Yeah, it's just I shouldn't complain since I haven't signed up for DC Universe, but I kind of like the idea of DC Universe building out to a point where it was worth my subscribing to, because you also got the comics. You also get the comics there.
Mm-hmm. You never know how it might go. If they do this, the kind of the way it sounds like, it might be like a single sign-on type subscription as opposed to a one home for everything.
Right.
So maybe your single $17 a month sign-on might sign you into DC Universe as it exists today. Because they simply haven't talked about how this will work.
Yeah, I'm waiting for there to get sort of a critical mass of those DC shows, and then I would probably want to subscribe. Like, I hear there's going to be some really good ones coming in 2020. That they're just, of course, Swamp Thing is just dead on arrival, but that's another story.
Yeah,
but
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, that one was unfortunate, but if it's so far, it's only one, so that that's not bad. They were pretty ambitious with their initial announcements when we talked about it a year ago. So 6 months ago, 8 months ago, whenever it was.
I'm still waiting for the Stargirl show. When the Stargirl show comes on, that's when I might subscribe.
That'll be your push.
Yeah,
I can see that. Well, anyway, March of 2020 is the expected release for the Warner Media streaming service. Whatever it ends up being called, however it ends up working, March 2020 is when we expect to see it in the wild. And that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. I definitely want to thank the people who were in Mixer today. We had a lot of activity in Mixer today, so thank you. We even got some special things in the chat room, so we definitely appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us. If you can't join us on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, that's okay. If you go to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe, you can see all of our shows and subscribe there, and all the different ways that you can do that on the podcasts and Facebook and YouTube and all that. They're all there for you. In the future, if you would like to join us live, you can go to f5live.tv/join us on Sunday nights and join us there. We always appreciate our live viewers, because we love to hear what people have to say about what we're talking about. So definitely join us in the future if you can. Next week is Father's Day, so we will not be on next Sunday, but we should be back in 2 weeks with a normal show. And I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you guys back in 2 weeks. Ciao.